well, there are 4 books. So there's 1974, 1977, 1980, 1983. 1977 and 1980 focus on the actual Yorkshire Ripper investigation, which are real crimes.
Which is a historical.
These were historical crimes. You know, a man from 1975 to 1980, a man in the north of England killed 13 women and attacked many more. And this case was known as, the press called him the Yorkshire Ripper. And then in January 1981, he was arrested, and he was a man from Bradford called Peter Sutcliffe. So the second 2 books deal explicitly with that investigation. 1983, the last book of the quartet, goes back to the child murders in 1974. I mean, these are fictional crimes, and I was always there are many things about 1974 that now I'm not particularly proud of. The violence towards the children, the crimes, I think, are rather over the top. I think over the top. I think really, you know, stitching swans' wings into the backs of little girls is just gothic horror. And once I started to actually concentrate on actual crimes, the Yorkshire Ripper crimes, I mean, what I realised is that you don't need to stitch swans' wings onto little girls in crime fiction. The actual reality of crime is brutal and tragic enough. You don't need to add this kind of gothic melodrama and horror on top of it. And so I was always very uncomfortable, as I began to write 77 and then 1980, I was always very uncomfortable with this kind of the fictional crimes of the first book. And so in 1983, it kind of revisits the crimes to show really that the consequences of crime are unending and that the tragedy for the family goes on. And I suppose in a way to kind of apologise in a way a little bit. There is a fairy tale element to 83, and I think without getting off on a tangent, I think in many ways crime fiction operates as a kind of modern day fairy tale. There's fairy tales were told originally as warnings to children, and I think in a way now they function a bit. Crime stories and crime films work in a little bit of a similar way as warnings, and kind of we're fascinated but we're also being warned. And so Red Riding is a little bit of a play on Red Riding Hood, and there's a character in the last book who talks about the wolf, talks about the killer as a wolf. And then also the area where the books are set, West Yorkshire. Before 1974, West Yorkshire was known as West Riding, because this part of the north of England used to be under Dane law. It was under Viking law, and the Vikings divided it into 3 parts: the North Riding, the West Riding, and the East Riding. Riding actually meaning ridding, meaning a third, 1/3, 2/3, 3/3, and so it was a West Riding. So there's also that. And then all the time I was growing up, the West Riding, West Yorkshire, was controlled by Labour councils, and the colour of Labour is red, and also the colour of blood is red, and so then hence you get Red Riding. That's where it came from.